Hello and welcome to the Superposition Guys podcast. My name is Yuval, and my guest today is Vinet, CEO and co-founder of Quobly. We discuss the company's mission to build large-scale quantum computers based on silicon qubits. Mod explains how silicon offers unique advantages in scalability, leveraging decades of semiconductor expertise, and why the biggest challenge lies in qubit control rather than fabrication yield. Maud shares insights on her transition from semiconductor R&D to quantum computing, the partnership they have formed with fabs like STMicroelectronics, the anticipated timeline for achieving significant qubit counts, and much more. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, Maud, and thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Yuval. Well, thank you for having me.
So, who are you and what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I'm CEO and co-founder of Quobly, and in Quobly, we try to make large-scale quantum computers based on silicon.
When do you think a large scale quantum computer based on silicon will be available?
Oh, that's the billion-dollar questions. Uh, um, well, honestly speaking, we do have small qubit chips currently. We're speeding up with the arrival of the semiconductor industry. So I would say that within 4 to 5 years, we will have significant sized chips.
The apparent advantage of silicon qubits is that silicon manufacturing is well understood. People make chips with billions and billions of transistors. What are the drawbacks? What's taking if silicon is so good? What's taking so long to have a computer?
Well, I guess you pointed it out. The major drawback is that it's long to set up. And the reason for that is exactly what you said. Um, it took it takes 10 years to set up a silicon technology, an advanced transistor technology, because everything is so controlled. Actually, we control things at the angstrom size, or we do layer by layer deposition. So the major drawback for silicon is actually the tiny text to instantiate the technology. To be precise and provide you with a concrete example, in silicon qubits, the quantum information is encoded in the spin degree of freedom of a single electron. And that means that we manipulate single electron within a silicon crystal. So we need to pay attention to each and every charge that is in the environment, and this optimization is somehow slightly different than what we've done in the transistor technology. And that's the reason why it takes some time.
And you yourself come from a silicon background, right? Tell me about your journey to start this company.
Actually, I made a PhD in quantum physics. I'm looking at the date, something like 25 years ago. And I was frustrated at that time because I felt quite lonely in my PhD, being able to talk with myself about what I was doing. I wanted to be part of a team. So that was the time where the semiconductor industry was looking for physicists to find solutions to Moore's law, that we were predicting the end of Moore's law. So I joined the semiconductor industry in CELT, which is a technological research organization. And I worked for the semiconductor industry for 20 years. I developed new technologies and just made progress, transferred them to the industry. But at the same time, I kept the relationship with the lab where I made my PhD. And for 20 years, what we've done is that we've cooled down samples that we were fabricating for the semiconductor industry to look at first their charge properties, and then we looked at their spin properties. And in 2016, we made this worldwide first where we demonstrated that we can make a qubit out of a transistor that we were fabricating for the semiconductor industry. And from that point on, I was leading the advanced computing department in CLAT, where we were developing the hardware to tackle challenges of computing. And it was part of the roadmap that my lab was working on. We were scaling down the transistors. We were working on memories for in-memory computing for AI, and we were working in quantum computing. And then quantum computing picked up, and all of a sudden I realized that, we've got a potential, and we launched the company.
Because there's so many silicon companies that are very large and established, plenty of resources, why would a small company succeed in having a quantum computer, say, before an Intel that I think is also working on silicon qubits?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You understand that we've worked a lot on that before we decided to launch the company. Well, I think it demands technology pivots from transistor to make qubits. And the background I told you, we've been cooling down transistors for more than 25 years now, and we've gathered some pretty fair amount of background. And to go back to your question of large companies, they're currently busy dealing with AI. You must have heard everything in classical computing is about AI. And so those companies, they've got a business to handle, and quantum computing is a disruption for them. In semiconductor, the way it works is that you develop technologies where you see a return on investment within the next 5 years. And so that's not so easy for a big semiconductor company to go and deal with quantum computing. Why you could go where maybe you will be successful, why in the same time you know for sure that in 2 years from now you will make money with AI.
When you look at other modalities, for instance, superconducting, so we see superconducting quantum companies say that they can only have a few hundred qubits on a single chip or chiplet before they get into yield issues, and therefore they have to resort to networking between those chips. Does that problem also exist with silicon qubits?
I would say that bet is that no, the premise that it does not exist. We really leverage the know-how and the expertise of the semiconductor industry to build our qubits. So far, just to provide you with numbers, I prepared for tonight and I counted the number of qubits that we fabricate in one single wafer. And currently, we fabricate more than 100,000 qubits on a single wafer. Um, we fabricate them. Our problem is to measure them and control them, but most of the time they do work. We don't face serious yield issues, and the yield is so yeah. Our challenge is really in the control of those qubits. This is what we need to handle now.
When we think about error correction, we often think about classical compute capabilities that have to be alongside qubits. Would it be correct to assume that on silicon qubits, the classical compute could be essentially on chip, or would it be a separate chip?
No, your assumption is good, and this is what we're trying to do. Um, and that's actually you're tackling uh, one strong rationale that we pursue. Our strong motivation is to start from existing transistor technology to be able to leverage the co-integration of classical electronics with the qubits. So we started from existing mature FDSOI technology, which is a technology that is currently fabricated by Samsung Global Foundries and ST. And we turned this technology into qubits. And when we are doing that, we can co-integrate the classical electronics. So currently, we demonstrated that we can generate the signals to control the electronics and the amplificators to read out the qubits on chip with the qubits. Next step is indeed to add some more functions, and we are developing the modules and just building like a puzzle to have the quantum error correction, some part of the quantum error correction on chip.
If I remember correctly, a couple of months ago, it was around the time of Q2B Silicon Valley, you announced a partnership with a fab or a chip maker. Could you tell me a little bit about that and why is it important for your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, you kind of raised the point. Uh, Silicon qubits are promising. Why aren't there more silicon spin qubits uh, to be demonstrated yet? The point is that the best quality in silicon is in fabs. And we spoke about the fabs, the fact that the fabs are focused on classical electronics. So far, most of the demonstration in silicon qubits have been either made in academic labs or in R&D 300 millimeter clean rooms. And this is what we've done for the last, let's say, 5 years. We've been laser focused in demonstrated qubits in an R&D clean rooms, taking into account all the constraints of actual fabs. And that was the next step. Next step was to transfer the technology to actual commercial fabs where we will meet the quality, the yield, the reproducibility of the semiconductor industry. So for us, it's really um, a tipping point for the company because now we've got access to the best quality.
Going back to superconducting qubits, we know that superconducting qubits have limited connectivity, maybe 2 or 3 neighbors for every qubit, sometimes 5 or 6 in newer architectures. Does that also hold for silicon qubits?
So far, yes. This is solid state, and we don't have global excitation modes. So this is a nearest neighbor. So far, we've got nearest neighbor interaction. So the architecture we're building are with 4 nearest neighbors. And there is some research work to couple qubits, to couple silicon qubits to superconducting resonators to increase the number of neighbors. But at this stage, this is still experimental research.
When you think about producing a quantum computer from silicon qubits, what is the cost driver? Is it the cooling system? I mean, I know in some other modalities, maybe the lasers are expensive. What do you think will be the cost drivers for your type of computer?
Well, that's a good question, actually. Currently, for sure, there is no doubt about it. The cost driver is the cryostat. It's the fridge, the cooling system, as what costs more. But cryogeny is not yet a mature industry. So as the number of cryostat increases, we can foresee that costs will go down, and we will try to drive the cost reduction for this industry. So I believe then we will have the control electronics that will be fighting with the cryostats.
You've been doing this for a number of years. What have you learned in the last year that you didn't know before?
Oh, that's your tricky question. Well, I've learned so many things. Every day when I go back home, I tell my kids, "You can't believe what I've learned today." Um, so a general question, a general answer, I would say that I didn't know before. No, but I learn every day the power of the team and the fact that collective intelligence really is able to tackle challenges that you didn't think you could solve. I would say that's my daily learning.
Tell me a bit about the company. How large are you? How are you funded? Anything you could share along those lines?
Yeah, yeah, we're currently seven. So we incorporated in 2000, end of 2022. We're currently 70 people working on the project. And we raised our seed round in June 2023. We raised 19 million. It was the biggest European seed round for a hardware quantum computing company. And currently, with the agreement that you mentioned with ST, is the trigger to speed up, and we will launch ours. Well, we're pretty close to launch our Series A.
Where would the fab physically be? In what country?
Oh, that's a good question. So currently, we don't build fabs. We benefit from existing fabs. We're getting started with STMicroelectronics fabs, which is located in France, close to Grenoble. The fact that we started with ST goes back to your question why the semiconductor industry has not stepped in yet for quantum computing, because ST has the perfect size to fabricate our qubits. And what we appreciated in ST is that they've got a know-how and expertise in technology development. So that's what we were looking for. So far, this is in France. And we're working with technologies that are around 20 nanometers. So it can be made in many places in the world. We've started also in Germany, in Dresden, working with GF. There are a couple of opportunities.
Forgive my ignorance, but I know the EuroHPC program funded several quantum computers of different modalities: photonics, neutral atoms, trapped ions, superconductors. Is there also a silicon computer that they're funding?
Not yet. Actually, to tell you about the Euro HPC program, they started with the most advanced technologies, and they're trying to span all the quantum computing technologies. So next call, which is somehow this year, will be focused on silicon qubits.
Other than silicon qubits, what's your second favorite quantum modality?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. Well, I must admit that I'm a condensed matter person. I just know electrons, and so I'm fascinated by everything that deals with things that I don't know, and I love neutral atoms for their physics, for the fact that they are just perfect objects, just like what you learned at school, and yeah, that's to me a totally different world that I'm fascinated by.
And as we get closer to the end of our conversation, I'm curious if you think about your journey, where do you expect to be? Where would you like to be 18 months from now?
18 months from now, I would love, and we will, have demonstrated qubits on ST technology and have the chip uh, to co-integrate the electronics. And we're building a puzzle, and I've secured this piece of puzzle to as a big milestone.
And I do get a sense that you are prepared for this question, but you can answer it even before I ask. Go ahead.
Marie Curie, Marie Curie.
I think I could guess why you would want to have dinner with her, but I'm curious to hear your answer.
Well, you know what? I prepare your question, obviously. But what I like about Marie Curie is that she's knowledgeable in uh, many fields, and she did not have any barrier. She went through, when you look at her biography, she didn't stop herself because of something. She did what she wanted to do independently of what people were thinking of her. And well, that's amazing if you what she did, if you put it back in perspective of the time where she was living in.
Maud, thank you very much for spending some time with me today.
Well, thank you very much, Yuval, for having me.